DarkStructureEnhance is a script which is included in the Pixinsight release that attempts to boost the dark structures in an image. It can be found under the Script menu, under Utilities, and here we find the DarkStructureEnhance. Now this script is designed to work with nonlinear images and should probably be one of the last things you do as you complete the processing on your image. And another thing I should mention is you should not have a mask applied to your image when you attempt to use this script. The script itself will be using masks on the image, and if you have one of your own there, it just interferes with the script and you'll get an error. We're going to be using this on my image of IC 2177, the Seagull Nebula. This is a relatively short narrowband exposure of only 2 hours taken with my ASCAR FRA 400 quintuplet astrograph using an ASI 1600 mm Pro mono camera. This image has some wonderful gas and dust regions with some subtle textures that you can see under the wing structure of the seagull. Let's see how we can bring out some of these dust features in dark lanes and make them a little bit more evident. When you run the script, it will point itself to the last image that was selected. In this case, the image is called SHO2. But you do have the option with this drop-down menu to choose another image if you wish to work with that. Next, there's a set of parameters that have to do with how the internal masking is done. You can talk about the number of layers that you want to remove, and you can talk about the scaling function, which is used to do the wavelet decomposition on the image. In general, I never touch these things, and I use the default parameters, and I would suggest you start with that as well. There's another option here called Select Mask, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute. The parameters that we're going to use the most have to do with the amount and the iterations. These are the things which modulate the effect of the tool. The default is 0.4, but this is really a scale that goes from 0 to 1, and the idea here is we're getting about 40% of the computed effect by the tool. This is not a bad starting point, and quite often I use this and I'm pretty happy with the results. You can also apply this more than one time by changing the iterations. You can keep hitting the image and keep applying this to get more effect. But quite frankly, I haven't come across an image where I wanted to do that. So why don't we try running it on this image and see what we get. Doesn't take too long to run. And now we have our result. And if you look at the image, this is with the change. I'll back off. I'll go back and forth here a couple of times. And you can see there's some subtle enhancements going on in the shadow regions. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see it better. Let's take a look at that. Pay attention to the changes that are made, like in these subtle dust lanes and variations and in the darker dust areas here. It's not a big change, but it does help to emphasize some of the dark areas, and these subtle gradations are made more apparent. Let's undo this. And let's try it again. We'll pull down another instance of the script. This time we're going to run it with the amount set all the way up to 1, the highest level, so we can see what the maximum effect is. Okay, let's look at what we have here. We'll back it off. You can see it's actually boosted quite a bit. The darker areas have gotten darker. In my eye, I think we've gone too far. I think this has exaggerated the modulance to a point where it doesn't look quite natural. But between those two runs, we have a feeling now for what we can get out of this particular script. I think in this particular image, I might have done the default, or maybe I would have gone up a little bit further. But I'd like to show you another way you can use this tool to have a lot more control. And that involves this extract mask toggle. We're going to turn that on, and we're going to run this on the image once again. This time we've applied things to the image, but we've also created a mask. And this mask shows you the regions that have been targeted and seen as the dark structures for enhancement. We're going to go back to our main image for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off what the script just applied, and I'm going to go play with a mask now. Now that you have a mask, you can modify the mask to make it emphasize whatever regions you want to the degree you want them emphasized. And we can do that by bringing up the histogram transformation tool. And what we'll do is we'll open up a real-time preview. And now we can actually play around a little bit and see if we can get an enhancement in here. And if I pull this down to about here, notice that I have a much brighter definition on some of my dark regions, which means that I can have a little bit more control and impact on those areas. So I think I'm going to do that to this mask. I'll get rid of my real-time preview. I'll drag this over to the mask. And now I have a mask which is a little bit more focused on these dark areas with a little bit stronger weighting. I can now apply the mask, and then we can just get the mask out of the way for right now. And going back to this image, we can see that the mask is in place by calling it up. Turn that back off. Now we can adjust the image. Rather than using the histogram tool, I tend to like to use Curves Transform for this. And again, let's do a real-time preview so we can see what we're really doing. Now when I come down here, I can come in here and I can really just play around with this curve. And you can see if I bring it up like this, it's de-emphasizing the dark areas. And if I bring it down, I'm making them darker. But where are the dark areas I really want to mess with? Well, they're dark areas. They're going to be in the bottom half of the curve. And we can see that by just clicking in here and seeing where we're hitting the curve. And we're definitely hitting it in a lower layer. This dark region in here, the very dark region, is almost to the root of the curve. So what I'm going to do is I'll put a couple of handles on here to lock down the curve. And now I'm going to try moving the bottom part in here to see if I can get what I like in the look of the image. See, that goes too far. And that's not too bad. I might do something like that. I might want to pick up this base here a little bit because I don't want to go too dark on these dark regions. But I probably would do something like that. Get rid of the real-time preview. I can just apply this now. And now I've put that control in. So here's an alternative way you can use the tool between creating the mask, adjusting the mask to get the look that you want, applying the mask, and then using the curves tool to have very fine control of the dark regions that you would like to emphasize. You can have quite a bit of control over your image. And I think that doing this at the end of your processing is one of those things you can do to just polish your image. So be sure to check out the DarkStructureEnhance script if you haven't already done so.